So undoubtedly, the Switch is the hottest thing that Nintendo has made in a really long time. And there are people who are having debates, even though the Switch is actually pretty loved, unlike the beginning of last year when it was the punching bag for everyone's joke. I think you meant punchline, whatever. I've seen many people saying that a gaming laptop would be a better alternative to the Switch because of some obvious reasons. Some that I'll talk about that are obvious, some that may not even be obvious to some people. So the first argument that I would have to see from people has to be, coincidentally, I had a trip to Washington, and I believe that this would be the best time to test out both of these devices. As I was 2 hours early and I had nothing else to do, I thought this would be the best time to try out the battery a little bit for the Switch and the laptop. So I first tried out the Switch, and I played for around 30 minutes, and this was the result. As you can see, it was at 93%, which is pretty good. Now, of course, this varies amongst games and stuff, so don't try and do the math with this and say, this is how long the Switch lasts. There are tons of things that go together to how long this lasted. So then it was the laptop's turn, and the results were a little bit different. It was at 88%, which is not far off from 93%, just a 5% difference. So as you may recall from the Switch trailer, this dude was playing his Switch on a plane, and I was actually curious to try it out for myself, and especially when you just have both of the Joy-Cons disconnected, it's pretty comfortable because of how small the Switch is. So then it was the laptop's turn, and it didn't really feel as comfortable. You can't see it in the video, but yeah, it's up to my gut. It's like a 17-inch laptop. Instead of using the keyboard and the trackpad, I used the DualShock, and it made the experience a little bit better. It still felt good. I mean, I'm not gonna lie here and say that it's way better because the screen is like bended because whoever was in front of me was a douche enough to like bend their chair. So yeah, the games do look better, but it's less comfortable. And I was gonna check the battery, but I was still recording footage for the laptop, and apparently I was recording all of this for an hour because we had to put everything away. I don't know how that happened. It felt like I just took off when whatever. I do remember though that they were both at like 50%. I can't really be sure of that. Don't quote me on it, but they were both like around like 50%. So then I was gonna test out sitting far away from the TV in the hotel room, once again trying to mimic what was being presented there, but I only brought my phone's charger because it also used USB-C, and I assumed that the dock would be able to support that, and apparently it needs the default charging box. It doesn't use mine. So I hooked both of them up to my TV, and I had the exact same feeling that I would feel if I was playing with just a normal console. It felt so natural, and the games look really clean on this 4K TV. There's no like little pixels, like if you plugged in a Wii or a Wii U maybe, that you would see those like pixels popping out. It looks crystal clear for games that are in 720p and 1080p. I'd have to say the Switch is a little bit more console-like for the obvious reasons. With PC, you sometimes need a little bit of that extra help, and you can't always use the controller unless you use a mapper. I just used the default layout, so I didn't control the DualShock, only for games. But of course for Steam games it's no problem because of big picture, and like you would expect, on the laptop the games look incredible. This version of Doom is running at 30 frames because it's in 1080p, and it looks a lot better than the Switch version, so that's why it's in 30 frames. And yeah, it just looks really sharp. So speaking of visuals, let's talk about as much as it's obvious that there is a huge difference in the look of the games, it still is shocking to me how good the Switch looks compared to this laptop. It may be missing those tiny details just to make up for the size of the console and to ensure a smooth performance, but sometimes they just look so similar, just minus the small details, as if this was a cheaper laptop that you would lower the settings for. Even though the resolution for both of these displays are different, they both look stunningly incredible and very colorful. Like I've said before for the 4K TV, their default displays are stunningly clear and sharp. If there's one thing that Nintendo is famous for, it is the first-party games that it has. I've seen in a lot of Nintendo forums that people have actually been pleading more for first-party games than third-party games. This is also the main reason why, even though the Wii U was a huge failure, it did not kill the company. First-party games basically saved the Wii U from selling even less than it already did. So there's no doubt on the Switch that even though it's been just a year, it has a ton of incredible games. Like previously mentioned, it has stuff like Splatoon 2, Mario Odyssey, and Game of the Year bestseller, just all-out beautiful game, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which, coming from someone who has never played a Zelda game, this was actually incredible. The Switch still is getting a lot of third-party games, as developers right now are working like crazy to port them onto the Switch. So far, we've seen stuff like Payday 2 almost coming to the Switch, Rocket League is already on the Switch, we have Doom, L.A. Noire, Wolfenstein 2, and I would not be surprised if Fallout will make it on the Switch eventually, because Bethesda seems to be very excited about the Switch. And also, a lot of small indie developers are getting a chance to show off their games. And I began to hear games I've never heard of that actually sound pretty cool. And I have no doubt in my mind that there's going to be a ton of new third-party games, and of course first-party games that will come to the Switch that people will love. As much as it sounds crazy, Steam sounds a lot like the eShop. It has its own first-party games that are extremely loved, and for the most part, all of them are extremely popular and critically acclaimed, but it also has those small indie games that also get to show off their skill. Of course though, PC does have a ton of more third-party games, and you could basically play anything on a laptop. The only limitation I could see is depending on the power that your laptop has. I remember when I tried running GTA for the first time, I couldn't because it was just way too powerful for the laptop to handle, even though this laptop is extremely expensive. Outside the world of Steam though, there are ports and ROMs and ISOs and other launchers. Some people actually do like Origin, and maybe even that Ubisoft thing. Isn't it called like Ubiplay? I don't even remember.
Watch this.
The biggest question that comes down to when you want to get a gaming laptop between a Switch has to be, is the price worth it? With a gaming laptop, your price is more flexible. The only limitation would have to be the power, depending on how much you pay. The advantage though is that you would get to decide if you don't really mind sometimes the frames dropping from 60 to 30 at times, but on the Switch, developers would choose that. But definitely you can't beat the price of the Switch. A $300 laptop could not run all of the games that the Switch could. One of the reasons that the price is so low is because of the storage. As you already know, it's 32 gigabytes, which may not be that helpful for some people. SD cards though are on sale all the time. I've seen 128 gigabytes for $40. But some people may be downloading a lot of games. And with the future, having a lot of third-party games are going to be huge. Your SD card may need to be updated. 1TB SD cards are coming out, but they're probably going to be really expensive because right now, 400 gigabytes SD cards are insanely expensive. Some of them are more than the Switch itself. And other than what I mean by power, the Switch has a lot of incredible exclusive games, just like a laptop does with Steam. The biggest issue though that I found with the laptop is that the battery tends to die more often if it's not in battery saving mode all the time. That's the only way that it was able to compete with the Switch. Of course, also limiting your graphics will help as well with battery life. So it would really be a question about how much you're willing to invest, and if you want to make some sacrifices. Do you want to spend more money for something that will have better graphics and more games? Or would you rather spend less for something that doesn't have as good graphics but has a little bit of a better battery life and it's a little bit more portable but may not have every game that you want? That's a tough call. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.